Good morning and welcome to today's English lesson. Today we're going to be evaluating a piece of persuasive text, but it's going to be slightly different to the way that you did it last week. So for today's lesson, you will need to be able to see the text for today's lesson. It will be in Tuesday's folder on the website. If you can print this out, fantastic, but if you can't, just make a note of all the mistakes that you see. So you'll also need something to write with and paper to write on. So if you haven't got those things, stop the video now, go and get them before you continue. We're going to start with warming up the word. Have a look at this picture. What does the person who created this image want you to think about the effects of climate change? And is it a successful image? So stop the video now, have a look before you continue. Okay, let's see if you match any of the things that I thought of. The person who created this image wants you to notice the difference in the two halves of the picture. So we've got the pale blue sky with the pink fluffy clouds that sort of turn sort of lilac-y purple compared to the bright, fierce orange sky. And you can see that the sun is not only red hot, it's white hot, so even hotter. And then if you look at the trees, on one side, you've got them green with plenty of leaves. So that's going to offer lots of shelter and food for animals that might want to live there. In contrast, the part of the tree on the other side is bare. In fact, it's no longer alive. So it can't provide food and it can't provide a habitat. And then moving down to the grass, we've got very vibrant green grass and you just want to run across that field. Whereas on the other side, it's dry and sandy. And for anyone that's tried to walk across hot, dry sand, it really isn't easy. So is it a powerful image? Well, yes, it is, because the person who created it wants you to see what life is like now. So with the green tree and the blue sky and the grass, and what it will be like if we don't do something about climate change. And to make it even easier, they've put it all on one picture. Let's have a look at our learning intention for today, or our success criteria. So what we're going to try and do is spot some spag errors. You're going to identify key persuasive features within a piece of writing. You're going to constructively critique a piece of writing, and you're going to reflect on the effectiveness of that piece of writing. Today, you're going to get a bit of teacher training in marking a piece of work. But first, we need to remind ourselves of the symbols we use when we are marking. So these are the symbols that you see in your books all of the time. So in the margin, if you see SP, it means there's a spelling mistake. If you see FS or CL, it means that full stops and capital letters are either missing or they've been used incorrectly. For all other punctuation, commas, question marks, exclamation marks, inverted commas, you will see a P in the margin. And for grammar mistakes, so things that are written in the wrong tense, or if there are words that are missed out, or if the wrong there, or there has been used, you'll see a G in the margin. Right, here's our piece of writing. And we're just going to focus, first of all, on just punctuation errors. And we're going to make it even simpler. We're really only going to look for question marks or missing question marks, full stops, capital letters, and commas. And I don't know if you've noticed, but straight away, let me just make sure that I've got a nice red line. Let's have a look at the title. So our title doesn't begin with a capital letter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put, like you would see in your book, I'm going to put a CL. And I'm just going to mark where the mistake is. And then at the end of that, how can we help the oceans? I think that's a question. So on the other side, I'm just going to put a P, because actually here I've put a full stop and it should actually be a question mark. So moving on, I'm going to read the whole paragraph first and see if it makes sense. So climate change is caused by greenhouse gases trapping heat within the Earth's atmosphere. Like a blanket, climate change is when the balance is lost between the sun's energy coming to Earth and the heat being released back from the Earth. Climate change is caused by volcanic eruptions, industry burning oil, coal and wood, and dumping rubbish. I think we could make that clearer to read, don't you? I think there's quite a few mistakes in there, so let's see if we can find them. So climate change is caused by greenhouse gases trapping heat within the Earth's atmosphere. Do you know what? I think we've got a couple of spelling mistakes there, haven't we? So again, I'm just going to underline where our spelling mistakes are. All right, so we've got atmosphere. I think that's supposed to be atmosphere. Earth, I think, is supposed to be Earth's. And just moving on down there, we've got lick for like. So what I'm going to do is just make sure that my writer is aware of those. So I'm going to put my SPs in the margins. And I'm just going to, at the side here, I'm just going to write what those words should actually say. Obviously, you would find these on top of the words that you've written, but I'm not going to be able to fit those in, I don't think. Whoops, let's make the writing a bit smaller and we might be able to get it in. There we go. And what was the other one? Like. Okay, so we've made some spelling corrections too. So let me just read that again. Climate change is caused by greenhouse gases trapping heat within the Earth's atmosphere like a blanket. Climate change. Here's my next error. I think we need a full stop and a capital letter. So I'm going to go and just make sure that we know where those are. So I think here, yeah. So I'm going to move across where my full stop should be. That should be on that line. And we also need another capital letter. So climate change is when the balance is lost between the sun's energy coming to Earth. I think we've been using capital letters for Earth, haven't we? So therefore, we've got a missing capital letter down here. All right. So I can put another CL there. There we go. And the heat being released back from the Earth. You can see I've used capital E there. I have got a full stop this time, and I've got a capital letter. Climate change is caused by volcanic eruptions, industry, burning oil, coal and wood, and dumping rubbish. That looks to me like a list. So therefore, what am I missing between volcanic eruptions, industry? Well, I've got one after burning oil, but I seem to be missing, I think, some commas. So therefore, I've got some other punctuation errors. And let me just mark where I think they should be. I hope you notice that the writing's in blue and I'm marking in black, just like it would be in school. So I think we need a comma there. And I think we need another comma there. And I think that's all we need, isn't it? I think so. So is that everything? Burning oil, coal and wood and dumping rubbish. This one quite often happens when we're writing. We get to the end of the paragraph and we forget our full stop. Right, there should be a full stop here. Yep. Right. So that seems to be our punctuations corrected. Now I've made it slightly easier. I have actually made those punctuation corrections in this piece of writing. But I'd also like to look at this paragraph for something else. And I'm going to look at one particular persuasive feature. I'm going to look at cohesive devices. And in particular, I'm going to look at my sentence openers. So let me just show you what I mean. let's look at our sentences here. All right, so this one starts, climate change is caused by greenhouse gases trapping heat within the Earth's atmosphere like a blanket. Climate change is when the balance is lost between the sun's energy coming to the Earth and the heat being released back from the Earth. And my last sentence, climate change is. So I've got 3 quite long sentences in this paragraph, but they all start in exactly the same way. I'm just going to number those so that you can see which ones I'm talking about. And you know what? I'm going to leave the first one. I'm going to leave the first one as climate change is. However, I do think that I'm going to have to change the opening of my other 2 sentences. So let's look at that second sentence. Climate change is when the balance is lost between the sun's energy coming to the Earth and the heat being released back from the Earth. It's actually related to the first one. It's almost like a consequence of the first one. So can I use any of my sentence openers here to make that better? As a result, well, that is one that we could use as a consequence, but I'm not sure that one would work. Also, no, I don't think that one is. I think I'm going to go for therefore. Right, so I'm going to say, therefore, climate change is when the balance is lost. Let me just write that in. Therefore, comma, climate change is when the balance is lost between the sun's energy. Right, I'm not going to continue that sentence, but you can see where I'm changing it. So if I just put that word in, it now reads, climate change is caused by greenhouse gases trapping heat within the Earth's atmosphere like a blanket. Therefore, climate change is when balance is lost between the sun's energy coming to the Earth and the heat being released back from the Earth. I could take out climate change. Would that make it better? Therefore, so rather than having climate change, I'm going to change that to it. Therefore, it is when the balance is lost between the sun's energy. I think that sounds better, don't you? So let's have a look at the third one. All right, I'm going to change my color because I'm going to identify that as green. Put our number 3 in. Right, so climate change is caused by volcanic eruptions, industry, burning oil, coal and wood, and dumping rubbish. So I'm telling you something else that causes climate change. So I could use also, that would work, but I think that furthermore would be even better. So furthermore, comma, climate change, and I can use climate change because I've taken it out of the sentence before. Climate change is caused by volcanic eruptions. And I'm not going to continue the sentence, but you can see. So if I put that all together, does this read better? Climate change is caused by greenhouse gases trapping heat within the Earth's atmosphere like a blanket. Therefore, it is when the balance is lost between the sun's energy coming to the Earth and the heat being released back from the Earth. Furthermore, climate change is caused by volcanic eruptions, industry, burning oil, coal and wood, and dumping rubbish. I do think that's sounding better, don't you? Right, now, we need to give a next step. So think about all the things that we've been talking about. And what would we say for a next step? Let's just put the arrow in because that's what we're used to seeing when we see next steps. All right. I think in order to make the writing flow and to be clearer, that we need to use different sentence openers. Yep. Okay. Now it's your turn. On your sheet, you will see that you've got the next paragraph. And again, we're going to look for capital letters and full stops and commas, or those that are missing. And we're going to have a look at something else that is a persuasive feature. We're going to look at whether any of the statistics in this box, and you've got the box on your sheet, can be used to support the arguments here. But before we do that, we have to read it. Now, it might not really flow because there might be some missing full stops, but we'll see. Because of climate change, the glaciers and ice sheets are melting and the sea level is rising. We are getting stronger storms and there is both more flooding and more droughts across the world. The seas are warming up. As a result, many islands and low-lying cities like Alexandria could disappear. When there are more floods and droughts, it affects crops and there could be a shortage of food supplies to feed the world. The floods and droughts could lead to starvation in some of the world's poorer countries. Flood and droughts might also destroy lots of animal habitats and some species could become extinct. Goodness, that last sentence was very, very long to read. I think it's probably 2 sentences and there's some missing full stops. So when you're doing this, if you can print it out, brilliant, and you can just circle them like you would see in your book. But if you can't, don't worry. What you would do is find where the missing punctuation is. So I'll do the first one for you. We can see that we've started without a capital letter. So what I would write on my piece of paper is the word because with the capital letter. Right, so I'll just show you down here what I mean. Just move that over a little bit, move that up. So I'd write number 1. Oops, my font's gone very large again. Number 1, because. And just so that it's clear, I would underline the mistake, okay? And then for the next one, you would just underneath put mistake number 2 or number 2. Let's see if we can find the next one. Because of climate change, the glaciers and ice sheets are melting and the sea level is rising. There we go. So the next mistake is here. So let's just identify it. Right, it's around here. So what I would write is, rising, full stop, and then capital letter. Oh, it has actually got a capital letter, so I don't need to worry about that. And then I would just underline the correction I've made. Okay, so if you'd like to stop the video now and go through and find all your punctuation errors. Okay, so we're still working on this first paragraph, but now we're going to have a look to see if we can put any of these statistics into our argument. Now, there are some up here that aren't really relevant to this paragraph. Let's just have a look at what we've got. Carbon dioxide levels have risen significantly over the last 200 years. I think that may have gone on the paragraph we looked at earlier. Sea levels are projected to rise between 18 and 59 centimetres. Well, we have mentioned something about sea levels here, but I'm not sure. 34% of people in the world live near a coast, possibly. We need to reduce world emissions by 2/3 by 2050. Possibly not. Or 1/6 of the world's population uses glacial drinking water. Oh, that would fit in really well up here, wouldn't it? Because of climate change, the glaciers and ice sheets are melting and the sea level is rising. 1/6 of the world's population uses glacial drinking water. I think I'd pop that one in there. But it's up to you if you read through and you have a look. So if you stop the video again, and then you can try and put in one or two of those statistics. Don't try and put in any more. Okay, task 2 is looking at our next paragraph. And this time we're not going to look for full stops and capital letters. What we are going to look at is some grammar mistakes. So I'm going to read it to you, and I think you'll find or you'll recognize where these grammar mistakes would be. So you are listening for verbs that are written in the wrong tense, or missing words, or the wrong word being used. So listen carefully. Climate change needed to be slowed down. We need to change the way we live our lives. We need to improve conservation because this will help to protect habitats and endangered species. We need to encourage people to buy hybrid or electric cars. We need to find alternative energy systems like wind farms. We needed to limit the use of fossil fuels like we use in cars, try and walk or use bike. We can help to save the planet. Can you spot, or have you spotted any? Let me just pick out one or two that I could see. So I did see here, I don't think that needs to be needed. I think it should be need. I've got a feeling that there's something going on down here too. We needed to limit the use of fossil fuels like we use in cars. I think there's a missing word there. And I think there's probably a missing word in there too. But there are others. Mainly, you're looking for the verbs written in the wrong tense. So if you stop the video now, you can have a look at those. Okay, now it's time for some positive feedback. You've given the writers some next steps to help them improve their writing. Now I'd like you to read through it again from the beginning and see, does it flow? And I'd like you to pick out some features that the writer has done really well. So think about all the things we've been looking at over the last few weeks. Modal verbs, facts. Is it well organized? Does it use personal pronouns like I or you or we? In actual fact, if I just flip back to what we were looking at before, I think we could actually change some of the bits here. Climate change needs to be slowed down. We need to change the way we live our lives. Do you know what would be more emotive and more powerful if we wrote, if we did, rather than we need, if we wrote, we must change the way we live our lives. A lot more emotive. And if we look at that last sentence, we can help to save the planet. Even better, because you are trying to appeal to your reader, change it to you can help change the planet. I wonder if there's any other needs or we that we can change in that paragraph. That would be for you to have a look. So once you've picked out some good features, I mean, I did notice there were lots and lots of facts in that piece of writing, and there were also some of the persuasive features that we've been looking at. And finally, have a think about your own writing from yesterday. Are there any changes you think you could make? If you are struggling with that, try and focus on one SPAG feature. So it might be full stops and capital letters, or it might be your grammar, and one persuasive feature. Probably the easiest one to try and get in are modal verbs. And when you've done that, well done, and don't forget to upload your work for your teacher. Bye.